Oh my Lord, remember when I said we might miss March by the time April gets here? So are you missing March yet? This video is a very fast, quick and dirty full moon report for the full moon of April 2019. And the reason we're doing this particular special report is because I think this particular full moon is going to be very interesting. So this full moon occurs on April 19th, and it will be at 29 degrees Libra. Now, this puts this moon at the literal last degree of a cardinal sign, which is pretty significant. And typically what we would expect with that is the culmination or closing of something, right? The official reaching a critical mass, or the end of the line, depending on how you want to describe it. But ultimately, what we are looking for are situations and circumstances that have reached their natural conclusions. So it's the official, all right, this is it, and the line, everybody off the train, or on the train as the case may be. This particular full moon, because it is in Libra, is disposited by Venus, which is also in the last degrees of the last sign of the zodiac, putting further emphasis on this sense of completion or culmination or critical mass, things reaching their natural conclusion and not being able to go any further the way they have been. So this makes this a pretty interesting full moon to watch. So I'm curious to see what plays out at this time. And the thing to remember is that it doesn't even necessarily have to be big things. Even little things can signify much larger changes afoot. And a classic example is a story about the canaries in coal mines, right? So a canary in and of itself is just a little teeny tiny bird and doesn't really mean anything in terms of coal mining, or miners or anything like that. I mean, nobody's thinking anything of that. However, that little teeny tiny bird was extremely significant in terms of what it heralded or the information that it was giving just by its presence, all right? So apparently back in the day, sometimes the fumes and gases down deep in those mines would get very toxic and very noxious and could kill a person. Of course, this is back in the day when we didn't have all of these big fancy machines to go in and drill for us. So it was human labor that had to go down into those mines to do that work, right? Which also meant that we didn't have these devices that measured what was in the air or give you information about them. So what they used to do is they took canaries and they would release the canary into the mine. Now, the thing about it is a canary is going to, at some point, try to find its way back up to surface and into the sky where it wants to be. So one of the things that they would do after releasing the canary into the mine is they would wait. Because if the canary returned and came out of the mine and went into the air, what that meant is that everything was fine. If the canary went into the mine and never came back out, right, after, whatever the expected period of time is, they knew a canary would find its way back out again. They knew that the gases down there were noxious and would kill a human. If it would kill the bird, it's going to kill a human. So they knew that they couldn't go down into the mine in that particular instance or that particular mine. And this is the kind of thing that we get with portent when we talk about even small things. So with this particular full moon, one of the things I would look for is I would watch, and I'm watching as best I can. I'm a little distracted with personal life stuff, but if you guys are watching current events, certainly pay attention to your personal life as well as current events and see what comes to conclusions or ends around this time. What reaches critical mass? Even if it's a small thing, it may be a significator of much larger things. Remember, that could be a canary in a coal mine. Now, this particular full moon, disposited by Venus in the last degree of the last sign of the zodiac, that Venus is also, are you ready for this? Conjunct the fixed star called Shiad. Now, with fixed stars, you can't really use them by themselves. You have to use them in conjunction with everything else in chart because nothing operates by itself in a chart. But what's interesting about this particular fixed star is that the keywords associated with it are, you ready? Murder, suicide, drowning. Oh, yay. Now there's a party, right? So we can't take this too literally. I mean, murder and suicide and drowning happen, unfortunately, pretty regularly across the globe. There's not a special day when it happens and only happens on that day. However, what I would do in this particular instance I would look at this fixed star Shiat as meaning unexpected deaths, right? So deaths that we aren't expecting. That is what I would look for with this particular fixed star, and certainly the activity under this full moon. So keep an eye out to see who is removed from this carnival we call life around this full moon, because that may be more significant than it first appears. Now, with that, Mercury is also in the contra anticia of Shiat. I know, which means nothing to you guys, and Venus. And Mercury is conjunct Deneb Kaitos, which is also another unfortunate fixed star, which has to do a lot with imprisonment and restriction and sometimes mental illness. So we may have some really significant events with people losing their ever-loving crap, as it were. So let's just hope it's not any of the dictators around the globe losing their stuff and suddenly start, problems. In our personal lives, what this does mean, because immediately after this full moon, within 3 days, on April 21st, so we're still really kind of under the energy of the full moon, Mercury and Venus will move into Aries and approach that Chiron in Aries. And what this means is that people may be a little bit more hair trigger temper than normal, and a little bit more hyperreactive, and a lot more irritable, and a lot more almost spoiling for a fight. So don't do it. Don't do it, because there's a significant potential for people to be off their rocker right now. Even normal people may be feeling it. Now, with Mercury, Venus, and Chiron coming together in Aries on the 21st, this is both good and bad, because it's under the full moon at the same time. Now, with Mercury and Venus and Chiron, one of the things that I would look for is almost an experience of this energy, like literally like cutting teeth. So if you've ever had a baby or been around babies that are cutting your teeth, this is an excruciatingly unpleasant experience for both the baby and the people around the baby. Because it just hurts. Oh my God, it just hurts. And there's nothing anybody can do to make it feel better, right? You just got to get through it. In this particular instance, we may be experiencing some of that in our personal lives as well. And the thing to remember is that just like those teeth, we have to go through this process, because the result that we're getting from it is something that we need to survive. You have to have teeth to survive in this world as a human adult. And whatever these experiences are bringing with this full moon that are as pleasant as cutting teeth, we need to get through these experiences as well, because there's something on the other side of that we need for our survival. So hang in there and understand that's part of what's going on right now. Now, with that, while this is happening, Mars is still approaching that square with Neptune and Pisces. So Mars is not entirely comfortable in Gemini. It doesn't really know what it's doing there. In this particular instance, Mars is in mutual reception with Mercury, which gives it some support and some protection and some power. But at the end of the day, Mars still doesn't really like being in Gemini. Mars in Gemini, as a rule, it's a lot of things, but one of the things it also it's a very easily distracted and oftentimes mischievous placement that is typically up to no good. Which isn't to say that if you have Mars in Gemini, you are always up to no good. But it is to say that if anybody were going to be good at being up to no good, it would be Mars in Gemini. So with that squaring Neptune and Pisces, one of the things we can absolutely look forward to is a whole lot of confusion about where we're going with things, a whole lot of game playing with words and documents and promises, which means for you, my dear audience, if you are involved in anything that involves somebody promising you something, offering you something, agreeing to something, or giving you a deadline for something, anything that has to do with agreements, contracts, and words, together or separately, double check and get it in writing, because nothing anybody is saying or doing right now is so absolutely written in stone and could dissolve or change form or be completely denied. I never said that. Before this is over, we've got to get Mars to the other side of that Neptune to get anything useful out of this. So this is going to be a time of high game playing for some people. And the only protection that you have is, get it in absolutely undeniable writing that this is what we're agreeing to, or this is what the deadline is, or whatever, whatever, whatever. And even with that, still allow yourself a plan B, just in case the goalposts get moved or circumstances force a change in the agreement and all that other sort of stuff. It's more likely now than it is at any other time. Jupiter will be obviously retrograde in Sagittarius. It's been retrograde for a while, but this is good because Jupiter retrograde is slowing down our over-optimism and our overreach. So Jupiter retrograde in Sagittarius is giving us an opportunity to slow our roll and get it right. So for those of you who are in sales, you may have to work a little bit harder to get your sales accomplished. For those of you who are in teaching, you may find you're going to have to work a little bit harder to be a little bit more clear in what you're teaching. And even if you taught it 1,000 times before, for whatever reason, people are going to have trouble understanding what you're saying right now. So you may have to find new and different ways and approaches to get the message across. And for anybody else who deals in anything that has to do with dispensing information or getting people on board with your ideas or your offers, this is going to be a time where you have to put a little bit more effort in. The good news is that with retrograde, like this particular Jupiter retrograde, what it also means is that anything that you secure at this time, it's long lasting. So it's worth the effort, but you're definitely going to have to put in the effort. Now, under this full moon, also at the same time, we have Saturn approaching Pluto and the South Node. So Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node is kind of this whole full moon is just not a happy full moon. Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node all together in Capricorn, and they would be in a wide square. I like tight orbs, but some of you guys may have a little more latitude. A wide square to this full moon, which is definitely very much a feeling of bringing the hammer down. Okay, so we can expect some folks to get their comeuppance at this time. For those of you who get through this fairly calmly and peacefully, count your blessings. Trust me, you want to count your blessings with this, because the people who are going to get hammered with this particular full moon T-square are people who really are going to be feeling it like, yeah, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. And then, of course, immediately after that, we've got all these transitions into Aries. So again, this whole thing about cutting teeth, there is something that needs to be broken and discarded so that we can move on and evolve and make progress and become better versions of ourselves as an individual and as a collective whole. So we're all going through this together. It's just that some people may be specifically elevated in visibility to be symbols of this thing. So it will be interesting to see what trees fall in the forest during this transit. Now, also, when this is over and we've got all that Aries happening, Mercury and Venus both moving into Aries, the Sun will also be moving into that conjunction with Uranus and Taurus. So just when you thought it was safe to get out of bed, this will further emphasize this abrupt and large-scale and powerful shift into a whole new cycle. So between the 19th and the 21st, I would even give it an extra day on either side of that. So I would go as far out as the 17th coming into the full moon and all the way out to the 22nd or 23rd coming out of the full moon and all this transitional stuff right behind it. That week or so in there will be high electric fence voltage, like intensity week. So brace yourself, be kind to yourself, try to be as productive as possible. It can be a very productive week and it can be a very inspiring week. So you may find you're getting all sorts of great stuff from the cosmos, like flashes of inspiration. But you got to stay on the good side of the you got to stay on the good side of the celestial heavens. And try to be on the right side of history, as it were, both in your personal life and in a bigger picture. So this will be a hecka of full moon. And the crazy people will be crazier than usual. So unexpected death is the signature under this full moon, and portent, small things having huge significance, even though they don't look like it at the time. So like that canary in the coal mine, even the smallest of things will be, when we look back, we'll be like, oh my God, that was the turning point. So there you go. So here's what's good under this full moon, right? I know you guys are like, oh my God, this is so awful. Like, astrology is supposed to make me feel better. So, and the thing about it is, like, I could say, like, oh, today's a great day. You're going to have a great day. And it would not be interesting, and you wouldn't need to know that. You already know you're having a great day. So sometimes it's just kind of good to know where to navigate to avoid the potholes and speed bumps on the road. And that's kind of what this is. So I apologize for this being so like, with that said, there are upsides to this. The upside is that when we get past the 21st and we've got all these planets that have moved into Aries and that sun is coming down on Uranus, this is a time of innovation and brand new fresh starts and really clearing the table and discovery, doing new things, making new breakthroughs, both personally and professionally and socially and evolutionary ways. The other thing is that if there were ever a time when you were given the opportunity to literally get your head out of your behind and get out of your own way, it's going to happen after the 21st. As soon as Mercury and Venus moves into orb with Chiron, which is going to be the 21st moving forward, everyone's going to be feeling a lot more clear-headed about what they've been doing wrong. Well, if they're prone to self-examination. For those of you who don't do any self-examination at all, you'll probably spend a lot of time pointing fingers to other people. But in either event, we're going to know exactly what we need to do to get this boulder out of the way and get moving. The other thing is that, again, Mercury and Mars are in mutual reception at this time. So things that have to do with communications will be easier to work with, even though the mischief makers are out in force and there's going to be a whole lot of game playing with words. So for those of you who are in occupations or work or lines of work that involve communication, this is going to be a phenomenally powerful time for you to really get out there and be heard and spread the word and like multiply, multiply and make your presence known. So for those of you who are in sales, communications, teaching, all this sort of stuff, there's more work there's more effort that has to be made, but there's more fruit from the tree when you get it done. Keep in mind for everybody else, remember that there's a whole lot of folks out there who are going to be playing all kinds of games with words because Mars is still squaring Neptune and approaching it. So we're going to have that to deal with. So make sure you get in writing and have a plan B in case things fall through. Other things that are really good, that's pretty much it. So it'll be a really productive time. Now remember, Saturn, and this is the one I'm worried about, Saturn will be going retrograde at the end of the month. That's the grouchy pants that I'm worried about in the cosmos, because that will not be fun. Saturn retrograde is never fun because Saturn is, again, the point of reality where who we are as an essential being comes into contact with the limitations of the real world. That's Saturn. So when Saturn goes retrograde, it gets cranky. About that when we get there. But for right now, this whole week from like the 17th to the 23rd, 19th to the 21st are your big key days. We can expect some major public events. And remember, even the smallest of things that occur around this time may have huge, significant portent for the future on a much larger scale than we're actually seeing. So keep an eye out for what goes on both around you personally and out there in the world. And let's see what this full moon delivers. If you enjoyed this and you'd like more information about the planetary transits and how to use them, or you'd like to learn a little bit more astrology for yourself from an actual practitioner with one-on-one tutoring, as opposed to kind of putting it together as you go along on the internet, or if you're even interested in learning how to read tarot, all of these things and more are available on my Patreon site. The link will be below. It's www.patreon.com/Primal Girl Wellness. And we also have exclusive monthly reports and all sorts of fun stuff for members there. So including free readings at certain tier levels, monthly readings. So go ahead and take a look. We'd love to see you over there and join the club. Hope you enjoyed this report, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.